Hey, welcome to Books and Brew. I'm your host, Andrew Huff. I'm a novelist, screenwriter, all around media producer. And this show is all about sitting down with fellow authors and getting to know their writing process so I can steal their secrets and use it for my own success. Now, here's the thing I know about writers is when we write, we love to have something to drink right along with us. And that usually comes in the form of coffee and or tea. So while we get to know these authors, get to know about their books and what it takes to be a writer, I get to try their favorite writing brew right along with them. Now, on this episode of Books and Brew, I have a really fun guest. Her name is Amanda Barratt, amazing writer. Even right after we recorded this interview, Amanda won some Christy Awards, which was huge in the Christian fiction publishing world. And so very excited for her. Can't wait for you to hear all about her books and her writing process. But I did want to very quickly let you know that during the interview process, my audio was just not great. And so I don't know what happened, but I wanted to go ahead and let you know to expect that. It's not a huge deal because her audio is great and she's the one that you need to listen to anyway. So without further ado, let's meet Amanda and find out what I am going to be drinking. Amanda Barratt is the ECPA bestselling and Christy Award nominated author of 15 historical novels and novellas, including My Dearest Dietrich, a novel of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Lost Love, and The White Rose Resists, a novel of the German students who defied Hitler. My Dearest Dietrich was a Christy Award nominee, was awarded an honorable mention in the Foreword INDIES Book of the Year Awards, and was a finalist in the Faith, Hope, and Love Reader's Choice Award. Amanda lives in Michigan with her family, where she can be found plotting her next novel, catching up on her TBR pile, and jotting down travel itineraries for her dream trip to Europe. Welcome to the show, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah. No, okay. So I didn't mention this in your bio. I just stole it off your website, obviously, and changed some things up. But like a few weeks ago, it was announced that The White Rose Resists is a Christy Award finalist as well. And a novella you wrote for Joy to the World. Is that the collection of short stories that was also published? Was a short form award nominated in the Christy Awards as well. So you're a double Christy Award finalist this year. And for those of you who don't know about the Christy Awards, that's kind of the cream of the crop of Christian fiction awards. So I'm shocked you still came on the show. That's how big you have become now because of your double nomination.
Oh, I'm still completely stunned. I still can't believe it. When they announced my name, I thought, are you sure that they read that right?
Right. Yeah, it could have been. Yeah, there are a lot of Amandas who write Christian fiction. So, yeah, but congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Like I say, I'm completely stunned and really honored and excited.
Yeah. Well, I know that there's been tons of praise for The White Rose Resists. And so I'm sure it's deserved, and a win is deserved. And look, I'm not just saying that because I'm a fellow Kriegel author, but you should totally win and beat all those other people, and they should lose. So.
Well, the finalists are all friends of mine, so really, it's just I'm rooting for everybody, and I'm just really excited.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I actually haven't seen this when the winners are announced. That it is announced during a conference, right? The Christy Awards.
So this year, yes, it's going to be a virtual event. It's as of this recording, it's this coming Thursday.
Okay. All right. Well, oh my goodness, this coming Thursday. Here we go. We're going to find out. And you were on here before we found out. And then we're going to find out that you won it. And it's going to be great. So, all right. As with this show, we love having authors on. We love talking about their books and how much they deserve to win awards. But that's all it guys for me to try coffees and teas. That's the main point of the show. And so, Amanda, in order for us to be as successful as you are, double Christy nominated author, what do we need to drink? Tell us what your favorite writing brew is.
So one of my favorites is this Stash Spiced Dragon Red Chai Tea. And how I like to drink this is I don't just like to drink it straight. I like to drink it with a creamer made with some silk whipping cream that I whip up with this frother. And so I kind of make myself this latte beverage, which gives me a very nice coffee shop experience.
Okay, Amanda. So I have the tea ready to go. The Stash Spice Dragon red chai tea ready to go, and it is going to steep for about 5 minutes. And that is your chance to plug your books. We're not going to talk about your books again for the rest of the show. Just this 5 minutes, why we should run out and buy Amanda Barratt novels. So go for it.
So my most recent full-length novel release is The White Rose Resists, the novel of the German students who defied Hitler, and it is based on the true story of a group of German university students during the Second World War who, because of what was going on in their country, because of Hitler, because of the atrocities that were being committed, the total mass murder of the Jewish people, they decided that they had to take action. So there are these 20-something students going to college in Munich, and they decide to print leaflets and distribute them, speaking out against everything that's going on in their country. And so they get a duplicating machine secondhand, a Remington typewriter, and in their homes and in the art studio of a friend that they know, they begin printing up these leaflets and they begin distributing them in mailboxes in Munich. And at first it starts out very small, just more of a local thing. But as more time goes on, they spread their resistance and start distributing these leaflets throughout Germany. And so their leaflets were written very much based on they were very intellectual students, so they had a lot of that. And one of my favorite quotes comes from their fourth leaflet, which says, "We will not be silent. We are your bad conscience. The white rose will never leave you in peace." And that leaflet was written, their last leaflet before the young men of these students took a break and went over to the Russian front to be medics in the army. So they're doing this, these 20-something students. And my story focuses on Sophie Scholl, who was the group's only woman to be part of like their core resistance, and then some fictional characters, Kirk Hoffman and Anneliese Brandt, who were kind of inspired by some of the other people who worked with the White Rose. So their students are doing this for months and months, and then they decide not just to do leaflets, but to do graffiti, and to, right after the defeat at Stalingrad, they take to the streets of Munich and start printing these slogans on public buildings that are going to be seen by people walking around on the university, and they're writing things like freedom and down with Hitler and distributing, doing all of that. And so they're taking these bolder and bolder risks. And then on February 18th, 1943, they decide to take the leaflets to the university and distribute them there. And so they're doing this operation in broad daylight and scattering these many leaflets. Like I think it's like over 700 leaflets that they're scattering throughout the university. Mm-hmm. And while they're spotted by a janitor who arrests them and takes them, and the Gestapo stow up, and then they're taken to a prison in Munich where they're interrogated, Hans and Sophie both separately. And finally, after hours and hours of this Gestapo interrogation, they end up confessing just each separately to the activities, wanting to spare all of their friends from what they've done, feeling that even if it goes badly for them, that they did what they felt like they knew to be right. And so only a few days later, there's a trial in Munich, headed by Roland Freisler, who was this notorious Nazi judge who just liked to scream at people and humiliate them and basically do these show trials to terrify the German people into ever attempting resistance again. And so during this trial, Hans and Sophie and one of the other members in the group, Christoph Probst, who became implicated in the organization due to something that Hans had in his pocket, they're facing this judge and he's screaming at them. And Sophie Scholl says, "Somebody, after all, had to make a start. What we wrote and said is believed by many others. They just don't dare express it as they did." And of course, Roland Freisler sentences them, all three of them, these young college students. Sophie Scholl is only 21 years old, to death. And they're taken from there to the prison in Munich. And just a few hours after this trial, I believe it was 4 or 5 hours after their trial, they're executed by guillotine. And so it's this story of these college students who believed that what they had to do, they had to speak out. They could not be silently complicit. They had to step from the ranks of the silently complicit. And so my story goes into that. It also goes into some of the things that happened after the trial, but that's like the basic historical premise of the novel, which it was just, I had so much just such a wonderful experience writing this book and bringing the story of these really courageous students to life.
Hey, that was 5 minutes. Great job. Love it. But it's time to taste the tea. That's what we're here for. And so it has steeped really well. It's got a great looking color to it. It's kind of red, which is really fun. Obviously, it has red in the name, but all right. So I have it here, and we're going to try the tea for the first time now. Amanda, you've seen the show, and you know that I don't tell you what I think until the end of the show. And so you have to try to judge what I think about it, just purely based on the body language, right? And but you also have to, obviously I'm a suspense author, so I enjoy keeping people in suspense. And so anyway, here we go. First taste. Poker face. All right. I'm not saying anything. I'm not trying to give away any signals. So we have our tea. We have Amanda Barratt. We've heard about her books. Let's talk about writing. And we have so much we can get into. There's a couple of things that I have on my mind, and I've got a little special treat for you in just a little bit. But one of the things that I know you get asked a lot is about the research that you do, because you are you're writing historical books, and they're very detailed, and they're around these real life stories and everything. And so I'm kind of also curious if part of that is traveling to places. And so I know you are planning a dream trip to Europe, but I'm kind of wondering, have you been to some of these places that you write about, or what is that like?
So the only two places I've ever visited that I've actually written about, the first one is Niagara Falls, which I had my first debut novel was called My Heart Belongs in Niagara Falls, New York. And then the second one was for a novella I wrote for the Courting Calamity collection. And that one was about the Triangle Shirtwaist factory fire that took place in the early 1900s. And while I was in New York doing some interviews for My Dearest Dietrich, I was able to go by that building and see the place where this horrific fire took place. And so those are the only two places I visited. So my novels, the things that I've done the most in-depth research for, My Dearest Dietrich, The White Rose Resists, and my upcoming novel that I'm working on now, all of those are set in Germany, and then Poland is my one I'm working on now. And I have not been able to travel to any of those. So I've had to rely really heavily on books, on YouTube channels where people take you through these historical sites. My book in Poland has something in Auschwitz-Birkenau. And so I watched this high school teacher take his students through the entire camp, and I was able to see, what it looked like. So I would love to go to Europe. That's definitely my dream. Right now with the pandemic, doing a huge trip like that would be hard, but it's definitely something I want to. And with every book I write, I'm always like, this is the one I need to go do the research in person for, because it would just be so immersive, and then so much easier just to be able to speak to, museum experts and things like that.
What's kind of fun about being an author in this day and age is there were times where you'd have to go to the places because you had no other resources other than books, obviously. But I find myself as an author as well, which I don't write about tons of faraway places, but even if it's like a place where in the States where I could easily get to it, but it's I just, I have a family and I have work and all this kind of stuff. I can't, to be able to pull up YouTube and watch X amount of videos of that place, actually, here's a good example. In my third novel, I wrote the setting was a prison over in England, and there's reality shows that follow guards in English prisons, or inmates in English prisons. And so I'm watching full episodes of the exact prison that I'm writing about, and just seeing it all and finding out what prison life is like in there and everything. And so
I know it's wonderful. YouTube, especially, I think, is a resource that I haven't heard as much spoken about as, say, books and, documentaries and things. But I found so much really great stuff on YouTube, especially for the book I'm working on now, that even interviews with sort of Holocaust survivors and things like that. So I've really been loving, and also with the pandemic, so many places like universities or museums, they're putting these lectures online. And so I've been able to delve into those. And so that's been another really great resource.
Yeah. Well, so what's your best YouTube search tip? Because here's what I'll say is probably a lot of people get intimidated with trying to search something, and maybe this can go beyond YouTube as well. But I feel like sometimes it's figuring out the right combination of words. So how do you go about finding maybe something that's kind of obscure?
Well, for me, I've done things because my novel that I'm working on now is set in the Krakow ghetto. So Googling things like the Krakow ghetto or specific places, buildings that were in the Krakow ghetto, Googling those, and just trying different searches. Sometimes I've found that it does take a while to find something. Like a search will pop up for something else, and then I'll be like, well, why didn't I see this with a previous search? So it is a process, and the same is with Googling, and the things will come up. But I mean, there is a lot out there, and I think there are a lot of really great resources to delve into. It's just a matter of just kind of finding them. I think that the amount of detail, I think that readers would be stunned if they know how many hours go into just little details. And I think that every book I write, the more detail oriented I become. So I'm Googling things like what furniture in the 1930s, what would that look like? Because, if I'm describing it, I can't just go based on what, my furniture looks like in my house. And so that is good. And so sometimes for details, what I'll do is if I know that there's been a film made set in the era. So for example, like the book I'm writing right now, the film The Pianist by Roman Polanski, or Schindler's List by Steven Spielberg, looking at what the furniture looks like in that, because that will be really helpful. But I know the detail, it's a lot. It's a lot of detail and a lot of, I think you have to have a deep love for your subject, because the time you invest in it, so much of it, people won't know how much you spent.
Okay, so here's another question for you then along those lines. So you're researching, you're writing the book. Do you act out your scenes?
So sometimes acting out, I'll get a family member if I need to, like how somebody would, like I say with like a fight scene or something. None of my family members have been injured, just disclaimer, but acting that out. But with dialogue, yes, because especially lately, I've found that the way to write dialogue and to make sure it sounds natural and not stilted is to actually speak it out. One of the things I'm hoping to do is at some point take a screenwriting class to try to get even better at that. But so I will actually read my dialogue out loud. I'm actually editing a book right now. And so I'm reading every line. And because my book is set in Poland, I'm doing it kind of in an accent. And so I'm sitting here half whispering to myself these lines of dialogue in a Polish-esque accent, at least the best I can do.
That's
so
awesome.
It's kind of fun. I feel like it's like I'm an actress as well as a writer.
Right? Yeah. Well, and that it's sometimes for a writer that might feel awkward and weird, but I think what you said is so true that sometimes when you put a line, especially this happens so much in dialogue, if you put a line down on paper, it may look good and it may sound good in your head as you read it, but then when you say it out loud, it's just like, oh, wait, that didn't work,
I know. A lot of times there are things in life we won't see. I mean, we hopefully won't be walking down the street and see two people in a fist fight, or even in, anything worse than a fist fight. But so to see those visuals, I think is so helpful, because I think it really helps our brain to just grasp what we're trying to portray.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do something fun. I haven't done this with anybody, but I felt like, hey, you know what? Let's change up the interview a little bit, because we're going to do a lightning round of questions. And so this is going to be fast questions, and you're going to be like, it's just like maybe right off the top of your head. We'll probably dive a little bit in our time into a couple of your answers on these, because I think they're going to be fun to unpack a little bit. But what do you think? You ready to try a little bit of a lightning round?
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Hold on. I need to take a sip. All right. Here we go. Plotter or pantser?
A mix between the two.
What software do you use to write?
A Word.
Most overused word in your manuscripts?
That'd be something to ask my editor. One of the things is like eyes or gaze. So like their gaze is net. So I'm constantly going through and like, am I overusing this? Because I do tend to.
Yeah. Who came up with the titles for your books? Was it you or the publisher?
My Dearest Dietrich and The White Rose Resist for both the amazing team at Kriegel came up with those. And I'm so happy because they perfectly encapsulate the stories.
That's awesome. Least favorite genre?
Gosh, I don't read a ton of fantasy. That's not a genre. I have read it, but that's not something that I typically turn to, probably.
Okay. I'll let you say your favorite genre, although I'm guessing maybe it's what you write, but favorite genre.
So my favorite genre is probably historical fiction, especially if it has just a little bit of romance.
Okay. How many half-finished books do you have?
I have a lot on my manuscript that I wrote on my computer that I wrote during my early days of publication. So I don't even know the number, but most of them are finished. They're not maybe completely edited and polished as much as I edit my stuff now, but there are probably a few half-finished ones on there.
Okay. How many hours a day do you write?
On deadline, I will probably write maybe 7 or 8. Now that might not be all straight writing. An hour of that might be looking up research and things like that, but that's about what I'll work when I'm on deadline.
Okay. Do you read book reviews?
I try to stay away from them because sometimes that can end in tears, but I do. If a reader tags me on social media, I'll definitely read it then, but I try to stay away from Goodreads and things just because I think that those are more for the readers than for the author.
Okay. And finally, your favorite male Christian suspense author?
Of course, Andrew Huff.
All right, there we go. That's a great answer. These were all so good answers. You nailed it. You beat the lightning round. It was great. On that, I did one of the questions I threw in there that I thought maybe we could unpack a little bit is that reading book reviews, which you kind of unpacked a little bit, because I do get different. I think it's different for people, right? I read every review, and I actually kind of love the negative ones. And maybe this says something about me. Maybe a psychologist now, if they heard that, they would be like, this guy has deep, deep issues. But what do you think? Like, what do those do?
So I do read my reviews. I tend to pick a time to read them and, try not to read them, especially during the first weeks of release. I won't look at a lot of reviews and things like that. And I find that you can learn things from them. And especially if you're willing to really take what people say with an open mind, if you find something that multiple reviewers mention, maybe that's something that you can work to strengthen in the next book and things. And yeah, I do read them. Sometimes I try to stay away from them if I just feel like I just can't do this at the time. But I love reading book reviews of not only my books, but of other people's books. It's interesting. It is interesting because like you say, sometimes there'll be a book that I will love and I will read somebody else's review of it and I will be like, they're criticizing the very things I loved about this book. And I think that just goes to show you that there's something for everybody and that not every reader, no matter how wonderful a book is, or how well written it is, it won't resonate with everybody.
Here, like one last thing, and then we'll get to the T review, and I'll just confess this, and this is I probably should, I'm gonna have to cut this part, I think, after I confess this to you, because it shouldn't be said aloud. But so I write, action thrillers, and I'm on Goodreads, and I go, like, I don't think my books are 5-star books. And that's only because I'm the type of Goodreads reviewer that 5 stars is going to be like top books. Like those are like the C.S. Lewis, like Mere Christianity, that's like, or, the Firstborn Identity book, which was like one of my favorite, spy novels ever, it's like, that's a 5-star book. And then there's 4-star when it's just like, that's one I almost would consider reading again. Like that's a 4-star book. And then most books for me are like 3-star books. Or lower.
I know, that's interesting. How different people rate their books. Sometimes you'll notice certain reviewers, they'll even say in their review that they have a certain system for rating books. And it's more like Other people are more like 5 stars means they just it was a great book. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I've actually gotten a review on a book where it was like 3 stars, loved it. And you're just like, which I identified with that person because I was like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll take 3 stars, it's totally fine. So Amanda, time to review the tea. We're gonna see what I thought about it, which it doesn't matter what I thought about it, you love it. So I could be like, it's not my cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I will say this was really good. It was a really good tea. Look, it's all gone. I drink it all. There's like a little sip in, but it was really good. I don't know if I've said this about another tea before, but this definitely has like holiday feels. Like this is definitely the kind of tea that gives you holiday feels. And so that's always a good thing. And so it's really good tea. Highly recommend if you want to be successful like Amanda, run out and buy Stash Tea, and you will be writing the next Christy Award nominated novel. So all right, Amanda, tell us how to find you online.
So you can visit my website, amandabarratt.net. I also hang out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, so you can find me on all of those places.
Very good. And you can find out more about my novels at andrewhuffbooks.com. There's also links to my social platforms. I'm on basically all of them. Just put my name in the search bar and you'll find me. But also, if you really enjoy hearing from fabulous fiction authors and what it takes to write books and all of this process, but also like teas and coffees, subscribe to my YouTube channel because we do this all the time and it's a lot of fun. And so, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on the show, and best of luck to you. By the time this airs, we might already know, and so then I can more market it as award-winning Amanda Barratt award-winning author Amanda Barratt is on the show. So, you said it was this Thursday or the following Thursday?
Yeah, it's just in a couple days from now.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be able to, hopefully announce Christy Award-winning author on the. I'll have to go back and edit the bio at the beginning of the show. So best of luck to you in that, and I hope one day we can grab a cup of tea together and chat more about books and writing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. This has been so much fun.